Oh, here you are. How are you, Mark?
Good. How are you?
Fantastic. Not as good as you. Beautiful place where you are. Where are you right now?
Thank you. I'm in one of our wine shops from Lac, the sister company of our hotel. And this is actually the oldest wine shop in Zurich, and drinking some lovely wine. So, but I see you're traveling in front of a map.
So you're in Zurich right now?
Yes, I live in Zurich since 3.5 years. I'm originally from Germany, but I'm based here in Zurich at the Lac, and we also have a set of wine shops called Lac, and I mainly work at the hotel and restaurant, but also a little bit at our shops.
Okay, and how is everything going in there with all this COVID thing? You are working as normal?
Not quite as normal. It's a little bit less than usual because not many people are traveling yet. So I've been speaking a lot of German and Swiss German more than English in the last couple of months. We have more local guests, but we have a lot of guests, especially in our terrace, and the shops are open as regular. But I guess as many sommeliers around the world, I've started doing things like Zoom live tastings and Instagram live chats with people across the world much more frequently than I used to in the past. So it's quite a new experience, but you take it as it is.
Okay. Well, thank you for being in there. This is our last interview, so I encourage everyone who is seeing this live to send us the questions. Of course, I have a lot to ask to you, but if they want to send their questions, we will be glad to be answering them. Okay, so you are the best sommelier of the world. How does it feel?
Strange, although it's over a year now. It was last March, so March 2019. It's a huge honor, and it involves meeting a lot of people around the world, be it now through a camera or before live. But it really is a huge honor, but it's still very, very strange and seems slightly surreal even in this time.
It was a big change in your career?
Yes, I was very happy. I'm working in a restaurant with some other great sommeliers, including the Best Sommelier of Switzerland. So they helped a lot to prepare me, but have been very supportive since also, Aurélien Blanc, if he's watching. And it's great to have that support because a lot of things happened since then. There was a lot of traveling, a lot of contacts around the world, a lot of events, a lot of small projects. And it's been a very exciting time and still is. I mean, it's another 2 years to go. So I'm looking forward to what else will come.
And in your daily work, did it change a little bit or it still is the same?
I still do restaurant service, but mainly it's now 2 to 3 nights a week because there are many other things going on the side. And one of the changes that involves a lot of time is I'm still involved in sommelier competitions, but now from the other side. So to think of new exams when we do, for example, the German national sommelier competition with the Deutsche Sommelier Union, who also helped me a lot, or also with the Swiss colleagues, and do some trainings and do some new ideas and looking at it more from a different perspective. So that's changed quite a bit.
So you are nowadays preparing candidates for different competitions?
I try to pass on what I did because I think the great thing about being a sommelier that has seen a lot of competitions and been in a lot of competitions, you never manage to do something like that on your own. And I had great sommeliers help me and train me from all over the world. There were programs like Somm 360 in Canada from great colleagues there, but where we met with people from all over the world. I had a chance to go to Kyoto in Japan and visit the lovely Best Sommelier of Asia competition. I met colleagues in Belgium training and from all over the world, and that has crafted some friendships. But I think it's important to give that back, what you've been given, and to pass on the knowledge and experiences you have. And also now through the ASI, through the International Sommelier Association, to try to pass that on to many countries that maybe are new to this world of sommeliers and sommelier competitions, because we have much more countries coming in and many countries that don't yet have a long tradition of decades of sommelier training. And I think it's important for us to connect across borders and to help with that progress.
But do you plan to continue competing, or that's all? You can't achieve anything more than the best of the world?
Precisely. Theoretically, I could compete for the European competition, but I'm very, very happy that I could finish on a high, as they say, and I'm very happy to now see many friends compete. And it's actually a bit more relaxed on the other side. And I'm very happy to have slightly less nights with flashcards and tasting, 40 sakes and 10 beers and 50 wines a day. It was a really great experience and I don't want to miss it, but it's now fun also to move on from that and to look into new perspectives.
You were saying it is like a more relaxed today. but how is the atmosphere among all the competitors when you are in the final and you are not the final three, but the final, the big one? How is the relationship among all the sommeliers?
I always like to compare it to Olympic Games, because also Olympic sportsmen see each other every couple of months when they train, and it's similar with sommeliers. Many of the sommeliers that I was theoretically competing against are actually good friends that I had seen in many trainings and many coachings, and was really looking forward to see again and spend some time together, and even during the exam week drink 1 or 2 glasses of wine, not much but a little bit, and that was fun. And it's a mix of a great anxiety and attention that you want to do your best, you want to perform well, you want to put everything you learned in the last couple of years and decades into that 4 minutes you might have in an exam situation. But at the same time, you're crossing your fingers for your friends, and it's always a mix of being watchful for what you do yourself, but also crossing your fingers that your friends do well too. And of course, some people have to leave the competition during the week, but you always hope that it's going to be a lot of your good friends coming along and moving on. And it was an interesting mix of competing against one another theoretically, but actually being good friends and keeping the bonds also after the competition.
You know, a couple of days ago, we were interviewing Aldo Schom, and we were speaking about the differences between the actual competition and how it was when he competed. And in the last 2 Sommelier World Championship, with you and with Arvid, like you both represent a more relaxed and young sommelier. Do you think that the industry of the sommeliers and the industry for the sommeliers working in the restaurant too is going that way, in like a more relaxed way and not with the typical ABC sommelier we were used to?
First of all, thank you for calling me relaxed. That's something I haven't heard very often, because usually I walk around in a suit and tie in the restaurant. So
you're not as relaxed as Arvid, but kind of. You're younger.
Yes. Yeah, Zurich is not quite as relaxed as New York, I think, although we are getting there. But I think you are absolutely right. There is a big change in the service culture in general, not only for fine dining restaurants, but I think in general, people that want to have a great experience want to be relaxed when they have that experience. And they can only be relaxed if the people delivering the service, both at the hotel or at the restaurant or in a wine shop or in a wine bar, are relaxed themselves. And if I'm being very stiff and very strict about something, it's difficult for my guest to enjoy his lovely night he has with his wife for his wedding anniversary, for example. And I think there's a big difference between being relaxed and being unprofessional, because even when you do relaxed service, it needs to be very accurate, very professional, very engaging service. But you can still deliver a service that is fun for the people around you, both in the team, which I think something is changing in the gastronomy. We're moving away from these very strict hierarchical structures. But also to the guests being slightly more casual, having more freedom, let's say, what kind of menu they choose, or now they can have red wine with fish, where the sommeliers would have shrieked 20 years ago. But I think it's important to demystify wine a little bit and to help getting things moving along a little bit faster and a little bit more relaxed, so the guest can really enjoy his night.
And how long have you been working in the service, in the restaurant?
I started when I was 16, so that's almost 13 years ago. And the last 8 to 9 years, I was working as a sommelier.
And in your daily work, did you see that change? Did you change yourself too?
Definitely, yes. I mean, we see it when I was starting in hotels. It's just over a decade ago. Everybody had to wear a tie. Now we have more restaurants, even in the lovely Bourg-Lac, where my colleagues don't wear a tie. We still do in the fine dining, in the pavilion. But for example, in our lovely terrace, they don't. And we see the way of service being slightly more personal. It's much more about the individual guest rather than you have your set program and everybody gets the same program of menu and wines. It's more about speaking to the guest. What do you want? What are you in for tonight? Making it a bit more personal and really thinking about the person in front of you more than the establishment behind yourself. And I think that's something we see and we try to train also with the staff. And I think it's important to get across to sommeliers also that are preparing for competitions or trying to become head sommelier in a new restaurant, that it's important that you keep your own taste and keep your own style, but it's much more important that you understand what's the taste and style of the person who's in front of you. What does the guest want for tonight for this particular situation and what is the best for the dish, the situation, and the guest, even if it's not necessarily what you would drink yourself at that moment.
Okay, I'm talking about this. Do you think the same happens when you have to make the wine list? Do you think that the wine list is more relaxed? Because we are very used in the 3-star restaurant, 2-star restaurants to have those very big books full of different appellations. Sometimes it is very hard for someone who is not in the wine industry to decode that. Do you see that that thing is changing also when we have to make a wine list?
Absolutely. For example, we just opened a new restaurant last year, the Bauers, which is a very casual brasserie, more casual than the rest of the hotel. And there we've not set up the wine list in a classic style by regions, but more by taste. So there's a page with light, fresh and fruity white wines. There's one with big and bold oaky white wines. The same for the reds, the same for the sweets, to help a guest, even if the sommelier is not around or if they are too shy to ask a sommelier, to be able to make that decision themselves. And I think it's very important that we understand that more and more guests have their smartphone. So they're used to making pictures. They're used to making, looking at Vivino. They even have some apps now which read the wine list for you and make some suggestions. So we need to incorporate that into our service and make sure the guest easily can find the wines he enjoys. And today I was grading some wine lists from Denmark and Finland, where they're about to announce the best wine list through Star Wine Lists. And there I saw the same. There was a good mix of very classical lists, but also of some new lists which are very on vogue, which are sorted by tastes, which have a good mix of classic producers everybody knows, but also some upcoming natural organic producers which are maybe slightly new to some markets. And I think you need to have that balance. And it needs to be clear in your wine list. But of course, nothing can ever replace a sommelier that's standing by the table and giving you recommendation.
Okay. And how many restaurants are you nowadays managing or different wine lists?
Here at the Beau Lac, we have one big wine list with about 700 positions from all over the world, which is in our 2-star French-styled restaurant called Pavillon with Chef Laurent Eperon. Then we have the slightly more modern wine list at the Bauers, which is the classic brasserie, which is sorted by styles and has about 150 positions. Then in summer, we have beautiful terrace located in our garden, where we have about 60 to 80 wines on the list. And then we have some smaller outlets like the banqueting department, like the hall, where we serve afternoon tea. In December, being in Switzerland, we have a chalet, so where you get some cheese fondue and cheese raclette, and that would be probably 5. But at Beau Lac Vin, which is where I'm today in the wine shop, we have much more. We have 3,000 wines from about 300 producers from all over the world, including some Argentinian ones, like I'm enjoying today. Pelleriti.
Oh, Marcelo Pelleriti. He's a friend of all of us. That's nice.
Oh,
and you have that wine in your wine list, for example?
This one is on the Brasserie wine list when it will reopen. We're hoping to reopen autumn when people are coming back from summer holidays, and then it will be one of the features there. Yes.
Okay. You know, a couple of days ago, we were talking with Paz Levison. Perhaps you know her. And
yes.
I asked her this same question I'm going to tell you. When you have to manage different wine lists, you have, if I ask you to choose just 3 things that are common in the 3 of them, okay? That you know when you have to do the wine list, you have to have that in mind. Just 3 characteristics you have to choose. Which ones would you opt?
I think the first thing any guest or any colleague looks at when he opens your wine list is the by the glass section. So you need to have an amazing by the glass section with some fair pricing. So you have a good entry level, but also move up to a way where someone who's really out for a special night but doesn't want to drink much has a good choice. And he needs to see both things he knows and feels comfortable with, but also someone who eats out a lot needs to find things that are surprising and he's maybe haven't had in a long time or back vintage. So I think the By the Glass program needs to be outstanding. That's key for all wine lists. The next thing, again, is bottle sizes. Even in a small wine list, I really like it if you have small bottles for a couple that wants to enjoy 2 or 3 different wines or a single diner. But also for a big table, you need to have some magnum bottles or even bigger in some restaurants. So you need to play around with different sizes. And the third thing I think is important for every wine list, and it's not always the case, is that it's easy to understand. And I'm still a big fan of physical wine lists, but now we have also, due to the current situation, have done some wine lists with QR codes. But I think even if you have an electronic wine list, it needs to be easy to navigate for every guest in your restaurant, not only for the young generation, and not be difficult menus on your web page, for example. So I think easy to read, good by the glass program, and different bottle sizes needs to be the same for all wine lists.
Okay, and if we have to choose some trends that you have seen in, not talking about the sommelier world, but the world of wine, we are still talking about organic and biodynamic, or you think that there is something new that is that we have to have in mind?
I think organic and biodynamic will always stay important and will become even more important, and that's a really great development as more and more also very classic producers are moving in that direction. And I think it's similar to the food trend. People are more interested in how their food was prepared and also sourced. So I think that's good that the same happens with wine. But I think due to the internet, due to sommeliers, due to Instagram, we see old classics coming back. And that's especially from countries like, for example, in Europe, we have Portugal and Greece that make outstanding wines, but from grape varieties that no one has heard of yet. But now these wines are entering new markets much faster, and they are not new. They're just new to our markets. And for example, the same for Argentina. For a long time, everybody in Europe thought you only make Malbec, but now we're finding out, no, you actually make really nice Torontes and other great grapes. There's some fascinating new wines from Bonada and some other interesting regions. Even I had a Pinot from Argentina the other night, a Pinot Noir, and it's really interesting to see this development that we probably would have not picked up on as easily. And that's why I think the spread of grapes, both classic grapes from new origins, but also classic grapes from regions that are a bit overlooked, will be a big trend in the future.
And the people, if we have to define the people that you are used to attending the restaurant, they are more classical, or you have a mixture? Because the thing is, how do you manage when you have to, for example, have a classical wine list, but you have to add some trendy wines? How do you manage that?
I think it's all about the famous 80-20 rule. 80% of your wine list needs to work on itself, even if you're not tableside because it's a busy night or because it's a different restaurant to the one you're working. It needs to be a wine list where the guest is able to identify things he enjoys, maybe with the help of the colleagues on site, and he knows that and is able to make that choice. And 20% can be your cœur, as they say in French, the things that are really close to your heart, that might be new discovery from your last trip, or some things where you had a great experience with a winemaker or a really big fan of the grape. And those are then the ones which add to the classic things. And I think it's important to keep that balance, especially as sommeliers move very quickly between restaurants. It would be wrong for you to create a wine list completely tailored to your personal taste and then leave after 2 years and no one knows what to do with wines. But if you keep that balance of 80-20, I think the wine list will work for most people.
Okay. You know, I was thinking about all this COVID thing and the new protocols and that things. Do you think that there is something that is going to change? A couple of minutes ago, you were talking about iPads in the wine list, and that things that perhaps now are like more usual or normal because of these new protocols. Do you think there's something that is going to stay for long?
You were sadly lost. I heard iPads, but then there was a short cut in the connection.
No, and I was saying that if some of that things you think that are going to stay for long, or are just because of this thing, and perhaps next year will be just part of the history.
I think digitalization will definitely stay, not only because more and more people are used to it from working in a home office, but also because it is a great process to go down, which has now just been accelerated. And I think that will stay with us, that we see more electronic access to wine lists through QR codes, through iPads, through good websites. But I think a second thing that will change is for the next couple of years, I believe we will be seeing more great wine lists that are a bit shorter, that are not hundreds of wines, but only maybe 100 or 150, but are very well curated dynamics. So each time a regular guest comes to the restaurant, there will be new wines on the list. And I think especially now where people have to really look into the economic side of managing their wine cellar stock, that will be much more with maybe a charcoal. And then when you are out of the wine, you cross it through and you write a new one. Dynamic approach to creating a wine list will become more spread than 3 stars or 3 glasses wine spectator grant award for lists with thousands of wines, because that's not what we see with the menus. They're becoming smaller, and I think become smaller too. But
okay. So we have a lot of questions in here, so just give me a few seconds. I'm going to read them for you. Here, Andrea is asking, which wine region will you be visiting next? And let's do both things. If you are expecting to go somewhere, if you can travel, and after that, if there is a special place where you have never been and you would like to.
Yes, I hope I understood every question. The next wine region within Switzerland that I'll be visiting is actually the Thurgau, which is a new wine region in Switzerland. It's more known for producing fruits, but now I'll be visiting our wines, especially for the hotel. So that I look forward to. And the next international one, seeing as I can't travel very far at the moment, is Alsace in France, which I think is one of these classic regions that is often overlooked because people only think they make powerful two. I think they're very, very versatile. And I really look forward to being in Alsace next weekend and visiting some great colleagues, also including Serge Dupes, who's one of my big idols and was a big motivation for me to win for the Best Sommelier World competition.
Okay, here I have another question from Andres, and he's asking, what do you think about wines from China? If you have ever had the opportunity to drink them, and what's your opinion?
Yes, actually in the competition, we had a Cabernet Franc from Ningxia. So we had Chinese wine, which none of us spotted.
That only appears in the competition. Those
it wasn't
wines that
only beer in Belgium. And I was to travel to Shanghai, and there I was tasting quite a lot of Chinese wine for the World Cup. He works for Frank Kemmer, if he's watching. And the Chinese wines are fascinating because, like the whole country, they are developing in a huge speed. Produces from all of entering the China, like Lafite Rothschild, launched their first wine last year. We are still yet to discover, and I think it will be interesting to see how these wines will develop in the future. The wines we're getting here in Europe, good balance between pricing.
Okay. Here, Alejandro is asking if someone is entering the world of wine. Which regions do you recommend for worthy wines? Wines cheap or expensive, perhaps $10 or less?
Is a bit challenging between. Directly, the question is for a small budget, and I think that's very important to have. And there are many countries, and countries like Spain or wine in a slightly lower price, there's a lot of manual labor. I think in France, so if you look at some crémants for the sparkling wine instead of champagne, if you look at some of the great in the Rhone Valley that don't come from Rutini or Châteauneuf-du-Pape, outstanding wines. And we don't find a lot here yet to do wines from overseas. There are some great wines we just don't know here that are of good budget, but also in countries like Australia. And again, speaking about the trends earlier, in the classic wine growing countries that didn't travel much yet, in Greece, in Portugal, in certain parts of southern Italy, and in certain parts of Eastern Europe, you find outstanding wines that are not very well known.
Okay, perfect. Nico is asking, which main characteristics should an Argentinian wine have in order to land?
Sorry, could you repeat, please?
Nico is asking if there is any
chat.
Yes, it's Nico Coleta. That's the characteristics that an Argentinian wine should have to have success in Switzerland. I don't know if you are listening to me.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Just repeat. There was a bit of a cut.
No problem. Which are the main characteristics that an Argentinian wine should have to have success in your country?
If I understood the question correctly, it's what are the characteristics you need to be successful in a competition? Yes?
No, the wines to in a country like Switzerland. No? Perhaps you...
Okay.
No?
So I'll just, while we're waiting for the connection, I'll just answer a question from the chat. There's a question from Alejandro. What kind of wine do you drink at your table on a regular evening? And I think there the great beauty is there are very many wines to choose from, and I keep getting new wines both through Boracua but also from travels and friends. A wine that shows the place it comes from and the grape it was from, and that's authentic. As I guess many sommeliers, I really look for wines usually that have a little bit of maturity. Current vintage, but trying to reach their peak or starting to reach their optimum drinking phase.
Okay. Which was the last wine you have had? Not the Marcelo Pelleriti one. The last you have last night, for example.
Yes, actually, this is probably a bit still. I really like drinking Riesling German, also because it's quite low in alcohol and very fruity and has a nice acidity. And that was a village wine called Wachenheim, which is a village in the Pfalz or Palatinate by Dr. Böcklin-Wolf. So quite a racy, strong acidity, but very subtle, not too much alcohol and slight touch of sweetness. So I really, really enjoy Riesling in summer.
Here I have another question that says, it's from Alicia, and she's asking, what do people know in Switzerland about wines from South America? Are they popular, or do you have a market in there?
Yet wines are quite well known. Argentina and from Chile. Wine producing countries like Uruguay are not too well known here yet, or sparkling muscatel from Brazil, for example. So we mainly see class varieties. So most wines we see and or Cabernet Sauvignon from Argentina, and Carmener and or Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot maybe from Chile. There are a few exceptions like Torontes, like some Sauvignon Blanc from Chile, like some Chardonnays from Argentina, but the majority is red wine, especially because in Switzerland more people drink red wine than white wine. Even in summer, red wine is much more popular here.
Okay, and here they are asking, how old were you when you drank your first wine? You have
Actually,
to say 18 or more, please.
Actually, it is almost 18. Because I come from Cologne, which is here than for wine. And it's not really close to any wine regions except perhaps the Ahr Valley. And I didn't really find the taste to wine until I was training to work as a hotel. And then really working in the restaurant, usually working hours was when I was around about 18. Let's go with that. Let's split out. And there was the first time I enjoyed wine, and it got me really curious because I noticed that I like some wines and I didn't enjoy other wines, and I wanted to understand that. And it was a bit like Alice in the rabbit hole, being in front of new questions all the time and having great people to guide me along. And it was interesting to see how some wines I enjoyed more, and I wanted to understand this, and that was what started me becoming a sommelier.
Okay. Well, Marc, we are done with the time. I'm sorry to have stealing you so many minutes. So it was a really big pleasure to having you there. It was really nice. So thank you very much for being with us.
Muchas gracias a todos, and thank you very much you, Mariano, for making this possible and for being so kind to put me as the finale of this wine series. And I hope then when all of this is over and we can move around the map behind you again, we can enjoy a glass of Malbec together. So
hope so. So it was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Same to you. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Adios.
Bye.